Analyses of sorts. You can see from the title, we're talking about Africans rebranding themselves. Africans from failed states rebranding themselves now as Africans because they failed to develop their own countries. It's a very annoying thing because what it tells us and what it shows us is that Africans have no intention of developing their countries. It's always the ones that come from failed states that talk about African unity, Pan-Africanism, etc., etc., etc. But what is the incentive for countries that are more developed? African countries that have put in the work to develop themselves, to develop their infrastructure and economies. If you look at a lot of the more developed countries in Africa, they're primarily being destroyed, and their infrastructure is being destroyed by African migrants who think that just because they exist on the African continent with you, that they have a right to undermine your sovereignty in your respective countries, which is not the foundation and the basis of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is not about disrespecting the sovereignty of individual African countries and trying to force African unity and Pan-Africanism by force, just because you have failed to figure out how to develop your own nations. You cannot blackmail and manipulate Africans and sovereign African countries into participating in your so-called Pan-Africanist movement, which, guys, is a complete subversion. It has nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. It has everything to do with the globalists trying to centralize power and control across the African continent. I want you to imagine the corruption that exists already in your country, the insecurity that exists already in your country. As Pan-Africanists, you guys have failed to address those issues and those insecurities, but now you want to open up, as you guys say, travel and explore. And it's the same countries pushing for this, primarily Nigeria, pushing for this idea of Pan-Africanism. Why? Because they are desperate to get out of their country. They are desperate to escape their country because they have ruined their country and made it unlivable. You cannot live in these countries because they've ruined their own states. And because they have failed states, they're trying to put pressure on the rest of the developing African nations to accommodate them. They're rebranding themselves as Africans, rebranding themselves as Pan-Africanists in the hopes that we will succumb to this pressure and allow them into our country so they can do what they do best, which is to destroy infrastructure, to bring criminality, to bring insecurity, to bring tribalism, to bring religious wars, to bring all the corruption, extortion, bribery that ruined their own countries. That's what they want to bring into our countries. And I keep saying, guys, please stop falling for it. Stop falling for this Pan-Africanist agenda, because the Pan-Africanist agenda has been hijacked by globalists. Pan-Africanism is not about Africans. It's about the global elites obtaining centralized power of the continent. Now, if you, in your own country, hold on. If you, in your own country, your own individual countries, can't maintain a sense of stability, peace, order, organization, if you can't have that in a small country, how are you going to maintain it in a big continent? All that's going to happen is that the looting is going to go continental. The corruption is going to go continental. And this is what the elites want. This is what your politicians want. They want access to continental tax so that the looting can continue, so that they can continue to do all the things they've been doing in your respective countries that have caused them to collapse. They want to bring that to the continent. under this guise of we must unite against the West. How can we unite against the West when the same countries telling us about African unity have relationships and bilateral agreements with the West? Let's get serious here. We're not children. We're not children. We understand what's going on here. And there is no incentive. Tell me, what is the incentive for African unity for countries, African countries that are more developed? What's the incentive? I understand for countries that have made a shithole, an S-hole out of their countries. Of course, those are the countries that are pushing for African unity because they've got nothing to go back home to. They've ruined their country, and now their only way out is this Pan-Africanism thing where they're talking about freedom of movement. Freedom of movement is code for them saying that they can use illegal immigration to relocate to better developed countries so they can have futures instead of doing the hard work of developing themselves in their own nations. Let me tell you something about Africa. If you are an African man whose primary objective in life is to flee to the country that another man has developed, then you're not a man. You're not a man. Because you don't take pride in what you have built. You want to take pride and share in the glory of what other men have built, what other men have fought for. Let me tell you, Africa has a problem of a lack of masculine men. I'm going to say that again. Africa's biggest problem is a lack of masculine men. African men are feminine. African men are soft. They don't exhibit alpha traits. What do I mean by alpha? Alpha meaning having a desire to dominate, having a desire to rule over your territory, having a desire to control your territory. African men would rather run away, would rather escape where pastures are greener. You see, you shouldn't even be thinking about making children as a man if you cannot control your environment. So the way you're supposed to think as a man is you set up your family once you have dominion and control over your environment. How can you be making babies in Africa when most of you men have done nothing to develop, control, and build your environment? Your voices are not heard by your governments. And instead of you challenging your governments directly, you guys run away to seek greener pastures in countries where the men there have figured things out. It's a shameful thing. It's a shameful thing because it shows a lack of self-pride. A man should have enough pride in himself and belief in himself to know that he can develop and build a society for future generations, not just for his own family, but for future generations. African men have a problem where they don't exhibit masculinity. What do I mean by masculinity? I mean solving problems in your home country where you are so that you can build for the future of your offspring, the future of those that are to come after you. African men don't have any sense of pride in doing that. Their greatest accomplishment is escaping to another country and then bragging about having a visa or passport of another man's country. A country that man took time to build. African men are shameless. I want to be honest. I want to talk to the men and say, African men, no wonder our women disrespect us the way that they do. Because what is there to respect about an African man? What has an African man built? What has he done that demands and commands respect? Don't tell me about entertainment. You see, one of the most shameful things is the things that Nigerians brag about. They brag about Davido winning Grammys. They brag about nonsensical things. Such and such a person won a Grammy. What does that have to do with us? What does that have to do with us? Just because somebody won a Grammy doesn't mean anything. That bears no relevance to us. How does a Grammy build infrastructure? How does that Grammy build schools and develop your country? right? So we have to be practical, we have to be realistic about what we're doing, because it cannot be that we take pride in nonsensical things. You understand? We cannot take pride in nonsensical things, guys. Hey, I'm being censored now by TikTok. That's why I don't like going live on TikTok live, because I'm already getting messages. And imagine all I said was there's no pride in bragging about winning entertainment awards, because none of those things develop your country. You see, African men need to take pride in things that make sense, like infrastructure development. You see? Instead of us taking pride in running away from our challenges at home, running away from our governments. I mean, some of you guys are in your 30s and you still haven't figured out how to develop your countries. You're in your 30s pretending that, oh, I'm just traveling to make money. No, dude, at some point, all of that cultural tension is going to cause conflict. And then you guys are going to cry that it's Zeno, or race. You guys love complaining and using those things as excuses for why you have failed to develop your countries. People have run out of patience. People are experiencing fatigue. People are not sympathetic towards people that run away from their countries anymore. And rightfully so, because as a man, you're supposed to figure things out and create an environment that's conducive for living. If you can't do that, then don't expect anybody, other men, to accommodate you in their countries that they've worked hard to build. And you cannot call it Zeno and complain about it from that front. Because again, that's just a tactic. It's manipulation. Because you have failed to do your job in your own country, you want to guilt trip other people to take you in. You use NGOs, you use the UN, you use human rights, you use laws and constitution, because you have failed to build something respectable in your own country that makes you not only want to stay, but makes other people, other men, want to live in your country. For me, I will never want to live in another man's country, because I take pride in my own country and what we're building in South Africa for future generations of South Africans. Because Africa is not for everybody. Africa has sovereign nations, sovereign states that must be respected. And if you don't want to respect them, there will be conflict. And you can't say that the conflict is Zeno. Because when people keep warning you over and over again to respect their sovereignty, and you keep imposing yourself on them, that is colonization. It's imperialism. It's imperialism. You cannot go to another man's land and try to tell them how they should think, how they should see you, what policies they should have, what belief systems they should have, and try to dictate to them that this is how they're supposed to see life. That's never going to work. That's going to cause conflict. That will cause war. If you don't have respect for people's sovereignty, you are asking for war. You are asking for conflict. And because some of you are too lazy to go fix the problems in your country, you are happy to incite that type of violence in foreign countries as opposed to just fixing the problems in your own country. Like I said, man, African men, I'm telling you guys, they need to be studied in a lab somewhere. Need to be studied in a lab somewhere. Right. Need to be studied in a lab somewhere, I swear. The way they think doesn't make sense. It's not right. Just shows a lack of self-confidence. Just shows low self-esteem. I take great pride in building in my country. That's our territory. Now you could argue, oh, but the colonialists divided and created borders. Okay, why do we have so many different cultural groups? We have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different cultural groups in Africa, which means we are not homogenous. We're not the same people. We have different languages, different customs, different belief systems. That in itself is a border. Why? Because it means that the people that have similar cultures or the same cultures will live together, and those that have different ones will live somewhere else. Those are natural borders. We didn't all just live in one place together. It's a complete lie. And people saying all of this nonsense are just people that are desperate to get out of their country because they failed to develop their own country, failed to develop their own nations. We can't be taken for a ride by these people, guys. No, we can't allow it. We can never allow that. There are certain things that you can't get away with saying here on TikTok. But the point is that African men need to actually develop something in their own countries and stop running away. It's not a symbol of pride or anything to brag about to escape to another man's country who has actually developed their own. Everything begins with the men. It starts with the men. If the men are going to exhibit soft, cowardly traits, that will determine where that society goes. If the men exhibit strong, masculine traits, then that country will exhibit the same qualities. The men in Africa, unfortunately, are incredibly soft. They've got, everybody talks about, oh, they've got hustling spirit, hustling mentality. But why don't you apply that mindset, that mentality to challenging your government and creating a functional state? Why does the legacy of African and black men have to be one of corruption, looting, thievery, right? Being sexual deviants, going all over the world, trying to make babies everywhere. No family planning, no child planning, nothing. Just going all over the world trying to make as many babies to either dilute their own genetics because they intrinsically feel like there's something wrong with their genetics that causes them to behave the way that they do, or they're trying to spread their seed so that they can produce more of their type of quality of being. A lot of these problems stem back to the fact that post-independence, African countries did not institutionalize their cultures. What do I mean by institutionalize their cultures? One thing I noticed about the Afrikaners after the Anglo-Boer War, the second one in the 1900s, when the Afrikaners were very poor, I mean, they were in concentration camps. What happened to them was devastating. During that second war, the British basically decimated these people. And and obviously, look, there's a lot of policies that were implemented to help them, including one of the agendas before they formed the Union of South Africa in 1910 was to solve the problem of the poor whites. And policies were put into place to help empower Afrikaners. But you got to look at what they did to build themselves up. They built universities, schools, banks. They institutionalized their culture in a way that guarantees that your society will reproduce a certain type of individual that's cultured a certain way. In other words, you have to take control of what your society is producing by creating institutions that ensure that by the time a child is 18 years old, they will have a certain mindset. They will think a certain way. They will behave a certain way. If you fail to do that, you're basically allowing the influences from all other countries, from the West, from the internet, from everywhere else to be what influences how your people turn out. This is why you find that today Africans, although they like to brag about their culture, Africans have an identity crisis, guys. Africans have an identity crisis. They don't know what they want to be. They want to be Black Americans. They want to be Brits. They're all over the place. They don't have an actual identity, a cultural identity. Why? Because you're supposed to institutionalize your culture so that your culture keeps reproducing like-minded people. We know that by the time you reach the age 16 and 18, you will be at this level in your development culturally. If you don't institutionalize, what do I mean by institutionalize? One of the foundations is creating schools in your mother tongue, your indigenous languages. It's one of the best ways. You teach a curriculum with intention to produce certain types of people with certain characteristics, with certain traits. You have to be intentional about it. You cannot just leave it to chance. You build your curriculum, you set up your system in such a way that it produces or reproduces certain types of people at different age groups and stages in their lives. If you fail to do that, you're going to have what we're experiencing right now in Africa, which is an identity crisis. Africans don't know what they want to be because their cultures are not institutionalized in a way where we know what we're producing because we've created structures around our culture to reproduce certain types of individuals at an institutional level. No, instead we pay tuition to be taught English. We pay tuition to be oriented into foreign cultures as opposed to strengthening and fortifying our own indigenous cultures. There are African countries that have had independence forever, and they are yet to make those types of moves that show that they have an intention to develop. You cannot tell me you're serious about development when your mother tongue or the medium of instruction in your schools is a foreign language. That means you are still colonized. You see, colonialism doesn't need your colonizer to be in the country. All the colonizer has to do is set up institutions to indoctrinate the people. And then that colonialism is on autopilot. So the enemy is not the colonizer. No, the enemy is our own people failing to institutionalize their cultures so that we reproduce a certain type of individual at certain ages through the institutions we've built that fortify and strengthen cultural identity. Without those institutions, your culture is slowly going extinct. Your culture is slowly going extinct, and you're giving rise more and more to the colonial culture. Why? Because the colonial culture has been institutionalized. So your colonizer doesn't need to be in your country. All they need to do is set up institutions, set up infrastructure that point towards Western cultural identity. And colonialism then is on autopilot. Some call it neo-colonialism. But being aware of these things means that you have to actively do something about it. You cannot let your country just go to the dogs and not actively intervene. Politicians love talking about, oh, we fought for freedom. What freedom did you fight for? Because the institutions are still colonial. The infrastructure is still colonial. Indigenous cultures, indigenous languages are dying. How many of you could write a PhD thesis in your mother tongue? I'm talking academic register, not the colloquial language that you guys like to use when you speak in your indigenous languages. I'm talking your mother tongue, writing a thesis. Not many of you can, because you haven't been formally educated in your mother tongue. And that's the primary problem. It starts there. If you don't create institutions that formalize your cultural identity, you are lost, and you will forever be lost, and Africa will never progress. Build a school. Some of you don't even have language systems. Some of you don't even have alphabets in your indigenous mother tongue. Imagine. Hold on, just give me a second. I'm just gonna mute. Give me like 2 minutes. So, yeah, guys, we have to be more intentional. We can't keep running away from our problems and rebranding ourselves after failing to develop our nations, rebranding ourselves as, oh, I'm an African. I'm an African. No, that's not going to fly. I'm sorry. That's just a scam. You see, you can't fail to develop your country and then want to rebrand yourselves as Africans. Let me break down why you see a lot of these Africans from failed states that are now coming out as Pan-Africanists, talking about we are one Africa. Why are they doing this? Let me break it down. The reason they want to now start rebranding themselves as Pan-Africanists and rebranding themselves as, oh, we are one Africa, is because they have failed to develop their own countries. Why? Because they're lazy. They don't want to do the hard work of developing their country and sacrificing 1 or 2 generations of rebuilding cultural identity, institutionalizing and formalizing their cultures. All of that groundwork takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of know-how. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience. Africans don't want to engage in things that don't have immediate gratification. immediate glory. They want to only engage in things that give them instant gratification, instant glory. So when we talk about building for future generations, African men disengage. They are no longer interested because they don't want to get involved in those things. They want quick money, quick success. Everything has to be now, 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 now. They've got no, and this is also why Africans struggle with family planning. They're not good at planning for the future. They're not good at envisioning and creating a future that they want. This is why it's easy for the West to give them dictates that you're going to do this, this, and this, and they follow as long as they're getting paid to do it. Because African men don't want leadership. They don't want to be leaders. They want to be respected, but they don't want to do the hard work of dignifying themselves with the necessary badges of leadership so that people look at them in a different light. Instead, they'd rather play victim and call everybody a race or a xenophobe, as opposed to just being honest with themselves and saying they don't do anything that commands respect. They don't build or develop anything. And that's why also the women in Africa don't respect African men. It has nothing to do with, oh, black women love the white man. No, of course they're going to love the white man if there's nothing to respect about the black man. If your legacy as a black man is constantly being oppressed by other cultural groups, how can your women respect you? Let's be serious, man. Let's be honest about this. Let's stop being victims. I cannot stand when a man plays victim. A whole man wants to play victim. African man, big guy, big strong lad, wants to play a victim. I can't stand it. I don't have the patience for men who enjoy playing victim, who cry about race, who cry about xeno, who cry and cry and cry and cry. A man is supposed to be dominant. A man is supposed to pave his own way and the way of his society and his people. You're supposed to create lanes, create paths, create new ways and innovations, not complain. You're supposed to be a force in this life. That's how you earn respect. You're not given respect out of pity. You're asking African women to pity you. No, they won't pity you. They won't pity you. They've got no time for that. You have to demonstrate strong masculinity. Create something, develop something, and then protect it. Not just creating and then not being able to defend it, or discovering and not being, and then complaining, oh, they're stealing our gold, they're stealing our diamonds. Yes, because you're weak. Man, I'm just gonna say it, bro. African men are weak. They are the biggest disappointment. I feel sorry for African women. African women are so beautiful, and they're left with these weak, sorry excuses for men that cannot develop. A black man's greatest accomplishment is fleeing to another country, not developing something in his own country. It's embarrassing. Hold on. Let me just give me 1 second. In Africa, you've got entertainers. Just generally, it's always entertainers that are the spokespeople for black people, and it's not right because these celebrities are also bought and paid for. They're compromised. They can never represent the people because they don't understand what the people are going through on the ground. You understand? So we need we need a new generation of black men that actually want the responsibility of leadership and actually want to go through the pain of development. Developing a nation is a painful and long process that requires patience, dedication, and discipline. Running away is not and will never be the solution. The next generation of black men or African men need to be taught to stay in their countries, defend their homelands by any means necessary, like what we're seeing Ibrahim Traore do. You stay in your country, you defend your homeland, and you fight to defend your homeland. That's what the new and next generation of black and African men need to be taught. Stay in your country and fight. Stay and develop. Your country can only go as far as the men go. If the men are weak and they're all cowards trying to run away to another current country that another man from a different culture has built, it shows you to be weak. This is why you cannot command the respect of other cultures and other races, and even your own women don't respect you. And then you cry that, it's xeno, it's race, it's this, it's that. No, you deserve to be disrespected if you refuse to stay and develop your own country. You must stay in your country and fight to defend your homeland, defend your ancestral land the way your ancestors did for you. Stop talking about immigration and we want to explore, we want to travel. Like the Jollof people like talking about, oh, we like exploring. That's not exploring. You guys are suffering from insecurity. You're suffering from oppression from your government. And your only hope of survival is to flee the country because you have failed. So now you want to rebrand yourselves as Pan-Africanists. Oh, we are all African. We are all African. No, Africa has 54 countries that are sovereign. Figure yourselves out. It doesn't mean that we can't stand in solidarity with each other, but we're not going to fight your battles for you. You must go face your own government. You must go face your own leaders, and you must sort out your own problems so you can learn to develop a blueprint in case the future governments try to do the same thing. You teach it in your schools. You institutionalize your culture. You formalize your culture. You formalize your indigenous languages so that you can teach future generations how to tackle the problems that you currently are facing today. Unless you do that, or without doing that, you're going to cause more insecurity across the African continent with all of your fleeing and your Japa culture of running to other countries and causing instability, causing friction, causing tension, and then crying about xeno, crying about race, etc., etc. Stay in your country. If you want Africa to be stable, if you want Africa to develop, stay in your country and develop it. Build your country where you are. That's what the men are supposed to do. If the men take their place, their rightful place of leadership and do that, the women will follow. But unfortunately, we have matriarchal societies because of weak men, where women have to take the lead and take the charge because men are too busy drinking and chasing after nyash. Men are in the clubs. It's embarrassing. Men are in clubs. You find 50-year-old men in Africa that are in clubs chasing after nyash, trying to buy women. The Jollof brothers made this popular. This is Jollof culture. Jollof culture is about chasing nyash. There's no direction, there's no purpose. I heard a Jollof guy living in Cape Town, a young guy who's below the age of 25, driving a 7 million rand car. Ask yourself, how are these guys able to afford these things? Things that a normal person has to work several years for to reach a senior position to be able to afford. You got these guys below the age of 25 that are already driving these types of cars, and then they tell you, oh, crypto. If it's crypto and all these things, why don't you go to your country and develop your country using the finances you're obtaining from whatever it is you're doing if it is legal? Unless it's illegal. And if it's illegal, why are you in a foreign country doing illegal things, even if it's on the African continent? Just because you live in Africa doesn't mean that all the countries that are sovereign belong to you. You're going to find out very soon that these countries are sovereign if you keep pushing this agenda, and you're going to be disappointed, I'm telling you. Trying to push one Africa is a scam. These guys are pushing it because they failed to develop their own countries. And their only hope, their only way out now is to try to force countries to accept them and take them in. You understand? Yeah, just give me a second, guys. Just want to do something quick. Where are all the patriotic South Africans in the chat? If you're a patriotic South African or you're just patriotic about your country, make yourself known in the chat. I'll be back in a second. Just give me 1 second. It's only African men that will brag about escaping to another man's country as a symbol of success. African men will brag about escaping to another man's country as a symbol of success. Failing to develop their own country is a symbol of success to African men. This is what I'm saying, guys. If we really, really, really look at this thing and break it down, the problem of Africa is the African man. and the cowardness, the cowardice of the African man. That's the foundation. If you solve the problem of the cowardly African man, Africa will start to develop. But for as long as we have African men that see it as a status symbol to run to another man's country, I can never brag about running to another man's country as a status symbol. Yes, you can visit, you can travel, you can do trips, right, and explore, but with the intention of coming back to develop your country, not to stay indefinitely to make babies in those countries so you can escape the work that you have to do at home. In fact, the way to look at it is like when you have an assignment to do, a school assignment, and you will rather do anything else except sit down and do this assignment. You will rather keep yourself busy with any and everything else except to finish your school assignment. You procrastinate until it's too late. This is the plight, this is the condition of African men. They have been procrastinating this process of developing their own countries for too long. Running away to another man's country to go hustle. You say, oh, I'm a hustler, I'm hustling. No, that is not a solution. That's cowardly. Stay in your country and build the economy there. Come together with other men, build your economy, create infrastructure. Use the resources. Now someone says, oh, but no, the West is in our countries. Yes, because they've developed weapons. Why haven't you developed weapons? Why are your leaders signing bilateral agreements, multinational agreements that basically cripple you and don't allow you to be sovereign? The next generation of African men cannot perpetuate the same mistakes, because what is the point of a few of you living in luxury while the rest of the continent suffers? Does that make any sense to you? We need to stop bragging about stupid things. If you are an African man bragging about living overseas, it means you are a failure. And you're too stupid to realize that you're a failure, because the country you're living in was developed by the men of that culture. You have failed to do the same for your own people. So you have nothing to brag about. What are you bragging about? What are you proud of? Don't be proud of running to another man's country to seek economic opportunities. Be proud of developing your nation to where other men seek to come to your country for economic opportunities. How many jobs have you created in the neighborhood that you grew up in the town, in the community that you grew up in? How many companies have you made? How many institutions have you built for the people there? But you are here all over the African continent talking about it is one Africa, it is one Africa. It's not one Africa. Go back home. Go figure out your own problems at home. Stop being a burden to other people's countries under the guise of Pan-Africanism. It's not an excuse. You are an inconvenience. You are an inconvenience in other people's countries. They don't want you there. Even when you guys go overseas, you go to Europe, they don't want you there. You guys go to Asia, they don't want you there. And they're just afraid to say it. But these days, these guys are coming out. They're really talking, they're really saying what they think, because they're fatigued. They're tired of their opportunities and resources being exploited by men who are failures in their own countries. You understand? I can never brag about living in another man's country. And guys, we have to stop these so-called Pan-Africanists. I'm talking about the men specifically. Men that are running away from their countries and then labeling, branding, rebranding themselves as, oh, we are all African. No, go fix your country. Stop saying we're all African. Stop talking about Pan-Africanism just because you come from a failed state. Just because your people ruined your country's reputation. And because they ruined your country's reputation, now you're trying to escape that reputation by calling yourself an African. When people ask you, where are you from? You should be proud to say where you're from if you've done the work of developing your nation. Only people that are ashamed of what their countries are don't want to say where they're from. This is how we immediately spot whether you're from a failed state or not. When we ask you where you're from and you can't answer, or you say, I'm an African, what does that mean, bro? Africa is not a country. What does that even mean? Oh, I'm an African. It means nothing. It means you are a failure. That's what I'm an African means. You are a failure if you're saying things like I'm an African. What does that mean? We are all one. No, we're not. We have different cultures, different languages, different customs, different rituals. We are not one, dude, just because we share similar skin color. Okay, Indians also have brown skin. Are we also one with them? Stop being stupid. Stop being silly. And then saying just because we live on the same continent, hundreds and thousands of kilometers away from each other, thousands of kilometers away from each other, that doesn't mean we have anything in common. Imagine, okay, guys, this logic, right, is so ridiculous. It's like me saying that because we live in the same neighborhood, that therefore your house is my house and my house is your house, and I have equal access. I can walk into your house anytime, open your fridge, eat your food, help myself to anything, your resources whenever I want to, because I've destroyed my own home. But because we live in the same neighborhood, you are my safety net by force. No, you are out of your mind. You are out of your mind, and you will get dealt with if you think you can trespass and invade somebody's territory. Human beings are territorial beings. You cannot invade somebody's territory and then talk about, but we are one because we live in the same neighborhood. It doesn't mean anything that we live in the same neighborhood. It's just a mass of land. It does not mean that we are the same. It doesn't mean we're the same people. I can't just come into your house and help myself to your resources that you've worked hard to build. You see, the way to collaborate and work together in a respectful manner that respects our individual sovereignty is that you come and you ask me, hey, how did you build what you built so that I can go build it at my own home? That's how we show respect to each other. That's how we show the intention of developing our own nations, our own homes. That way, and I'll be happy to help you. You know why I'll be happy to help you? Because it takes the burden away from me of having to take care of you indefinitely, perpetually. Every time you have a crisis, you come running to me. Every time you mess up your own home, you come to me. I would rather equip you with the necessary skills so that you can be independent and stand on your own. That's what solidarity and African solidarity should be about. Giving each other blueprints on how to develop our nations. Blueprints. This is how you develop a school. This is how you build a power plant. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. That's how we're supposed to be moving as Africans, right? Sovereign within our own nations, but developing in such a way that we can cultivate our cultural identities without diluting them or losing them through immigration, because cultures are being diluted and they're being mixed with things that we don't understand that are foreign to us, because some African countries believe in Sharia law. Some African countries are doing G-sides. Others are unaliving babies. Others are graping babies. And that's a normal part of their culture. We cannot open borders to people like that. That will increase insecurity. That will destabilize the entire African continent. And that's exactly why the globalists are pushing this agenda through Pan-Africanism. So they're using the desperation of failed states to cause destabilization across the African continent by forcing migration, which is going to force what? Insecurity. It's going to force what? Tension. And then there's going to be accusations of xeno and etc., etc., etc. Why? All because you ran away from your own country. When you confront these people and ask them, why did you run away from your country? They say, they start getting cheeky with you and getting passive aggressive. They don't give you straight answers. You know why? Because they're ashamed. In their heart of hearts, they're ashamed of themselves that they couldn't develop their own country. They couldn't develop their own nation. They had to run to another man's nation that is more developed. It's even worse when the African migrants that come to South Africa and show no respect to the black indigenous people, black and colored indigenous people. They treat them with such disdain and say, oh, it's one Africa. No, you did not fight for this one Africa. The blood in this soil is the blood of our ancestors who fought while your people had independence and did nothing with it. So we are not going to be your second chance. We won't be your bailout. You must go through the pain of developing your own country go through the pain of developing a nation takes several generations. You must understand. It's not a quick fix. It's not powder money. See, African men love quick fixes, quick cash, quick this, quick that. This is why we African men struggle with family planning. They don't think ahead. It's always the West that's planning for Africa and telling Africa, this is where you're going to go, this is what you're going to do. Why? Because African men are the problem. It starts with us. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not going to tell you things to appease you, to make you feel happy, to make you know. It starts. The problem in Africa is the problem of the African man that refuses to assume leadership. The African man refuses to assume leadership. Be a leader in your country. Stop running away. There's nothing to brag about when you talk about, oh, I have citizenship in this or that country. That is not something to be proud of. It means you ran away from the challenge of developing your own country. You must figure it out. It will not go away. The problems in your country will continue to get worse. And then that instability is going to spread to other African countries that you guys migrate to. And guess what? Before long, you won't have a home to go to because they're going to ban you. They're going to close doors and force you to go back to the situation that you ran away from. And by then, you won't be able to do anything to change it. Respect yourselves. Stop running. Stop. Listen, African man, hear me and hear me well. Stop running away from the problems in your country and start solving them. Some of these solutions are going to require you to sacrifice your lives in the same way that men of other cultures sacrifice their lives so that you can experience what you're experiencing in their countries. Do you understand? Do you understand that for you to migrate to another man's country, people had to die for you to experience all that infrastructure, all that development, all that organization, a functional government, functional state? People died for it. It's not just because they are lucky. You know, sometimes the Jollof people like to pretend as if these things happen by luck. It's not luck. People actually had to work to create these things. So if you're really hardworking, ambitious, driven, like you guys like to claim you are, why can't we see it in your nation, your home nation that you have control of? Why can't we see it there? Why can't we see this development in the places that you guys grew up in? Why can't we see all this development in the countries you guys grew up in, the country of your birth, your ancestral homeland? Why can't we see the development there? Why can't we see the hard work, the ambition, the drive, the intelligence? Why can't we see it there? Huh? Why can't you guys show us? We are supposed to be exchanging knowledge, information, blueprints, ideas, not migrating and running away to another man's country and then saying, oh, you're jealous of me because I am hardworking, we are all African. No, this is nonsense. It's not going to develop our nations. Running away indefinitely, perpetually. I'm not saying don't travel. Yes, travel to a country, learn, come back home, fix your country, develop your country, build your country. Be proud to develop and build your countries. Be proud to develop your countries. Be proud to stay home and build the infrastructure. Unalive yourselves in the process. Be willing to be unalived, fighting to develop, fighting to build. Let's stop running, guys. It starts with the men. Hola, hola, Brayag.
My leader, how are you?
Kimna, Twena?
No, Kimanat, man. Kimanat. Yo, no, I was drawn by your preaching. It's you're throwing flames so early in the morning.
So, Brayag, any thoughts
No,
and ideas you want to also share on this topic
no,
of African men running away instead of developing? We should be developing.
look, here's the thing, yeah. And this is the part, the only part where I would blame South Africans. We thought Ubuntu was an African concept, and we've now
Yes,
realized no, it's not an African concept. This is a South
very true.
African invention. It's a South
Yes.
African invention, and now we just assumed people with the same skin color as us, this is how we flow. No, we got a rude awakening to say, no, dude, these people do not know what the heck you're talking about. They're still in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, it's about desperation. It's about day to day. So they will do anything. And here's the dark side of it, that if you get a person who's in survival mode, it's only a matter of time, given the chance, those people can be a hired hand to unalive you. That's the sad part about it, that they can be a hired hand to unalive you.
And
I
Brayak, we're seeing it happen. We're seeing it because
exactly,
think about it.
exactly,
Who's selling drugs to our communities? Who's
exactly,
selling powder? Who's
exactly.
bringing all the instability? They're already doing it. They're
Who
already
is
working as
who
hired hands.
who is trafficking our children?
Yes.
Who is doing
Yeah.
patient transit heists?
Yes.
So it's a horrible thing. And here's the thing that I've also said on other platforms is, to a lawless man, the rule of law feels like oppression. To an irresponsible man, tough love feels like hatred. When you sit him down and say, dude, you have to build, you can't spend your life running away, they feel like you hate me. And it's the purest type of love, where you're saying, the results that I'm having, I want you to replicate them. I want you to have the same type of results. This is how you do it. Go back and take accountability for your life. No, they feel like, no, you hate them. It's hatred. And it's not hatred, it's actually love. But it's tough love that we are giving them
Do you
now.
think that is the issue a cultural thing or a genetic thing? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it because they've grown up in such tough, when we talk about Ubuntu, we went through hardships and yet somehow, my brother, we managed to maintain a sense of humanity that we assumed everybody else also has. So, what is the issue with the other African countries, and particularly the other African men, that they don't have this thing? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it their
No,
environment
no,
that breeds
look,
that type of individual?
we are on the same continent. So I don't think it's nature. I think it's nature. It's how they are brought up. A South African man bears with him responsibility on a number of fronts. You bear the responsibility, the weight of responsibility for your children, for your spouse, for your parents, and also for your ancestors. Which is why a self respecting South African man will never, never allow himself to be buried in Russia, to be buried in Senegal, to be buried anywhere. You feel that, you know what? No, dude, I have a responsibility to be buried with my ancestors. There's that linkage that we have with our country and the land of our ancestors. So it's not nature, but rather nature. The way these people were brought up. I was on this other American thing live, and there was a Nigerian guy. He's based in London, and he was busy trying to sweet talk one of the South African ladies and stuff. And I was so disgusted because I'm thinking, at this age, and you can sense that this is not a young man. He's middle aged, and his life revolves around sweet talking women. He's got nothing else to offer. He's still a player, you know, that he can't even
Wow.
keep it
How old is
private.
he? If, if you could
Late
just
30s,
estimate.
late 30s. So I'm
Wow.
thinking, okay, this runner is sitting somewhere in London, and he's on the internet, instead of talking stuff that men should be talking about, which is building, which is legacy, stuff like that. He's busy trying to say, no, South African men and South African women can't get enough of Nigerian men. Once a South African woman has been with a Nigerian man, they are messed up for life. They'll never be the same. They'll never go back. All sorts of nonsense. I'm saying, you know what? This is a man baby, a man baby. So, Miner, we've got a problem on our hands. We've got a serious problem on our hands where it's now culture clash.
Yes.
We
Incompatible
thought these people,
cultures now.
exactly. We thought that these
Yeah.
people were battle weary. After you've been
Yes.
in a battle for some time, sometimes you
In a
become
war. Yes.
punch drunk. So we thought,
Yes.
no, man, let's just give them water. Let's just give them a blanket
Right.
so that they can
Right.
regather and go back, which is basically what South Africa did. South Africans did when they skipped the country. What they did when they went into African countries, they were not sitting there in the township selling data and airtime. They were in the camps training to
Mm.
say, I need to rearm so that
Right.
I can go.
Go
I become
back and
emotional.
fight.
I become emotional
Yeah.
thinking about it. So I can go back and reclaim my country,
Yeah.
fight and
Mm.
basically unalive for my country. The mandate was very clear, very clear. And now you get these nincompoops, they come over and you now realize, no, these people were not about fighting and all that. They're about the soft life. They're about the soft life. So we are at a point where we're saying, but we've
Hey,
carried
that's
you for too
sad.
long now. We've carried you for too
Yeah.
long. You
Ish.
have to go back. Now you are hated for it. You're called Zeno. But what I like is that South Africans now at a point where they're saying, you know what, screw this.
Screw
We
this.
don't care. We don't care what you call us. We are cool with it. The bottom line is that you're going back. That's where we are
So
now. That's
this
the
is
temperature.
my next thing was that is it worth trying to carry that weight patiently in the hopes that they will eventually change, or should we now turn the page and start focusing on how we are going to reclaim? Because my brother, we were interrupted in what we were trying to do. We were in the process because
Mm,
1994 was not the end. It was supposed to be the beginning of us
mm,
now
yeah,
regaining our sovereignty, our independence, our resources, and
yeah.
being a fully independent, autonomous country. We were disrupted because of this mass immigration, where we thought we'd have our brothers and sisters coming in to assist us in this fight, and yet they fought on the other side and actually made it harder, and then ridiculed us and undermined us. Is it still worth us extending our hand and trying to work together, trying to help them also develop, particularly our neighbors like the Zimbabwe's of the world, to help them also stand on their own feet? Or is it now a time for us to just be selfish and focused on South Africa first, at least for one generation, so we can just build? Because we need at least 50 years.
Look, tough love does not allow us to extend an olive branch anymore. Tough love does not
Yes.
allow us to do that. So that ship has sailed. That ship has completely sailed. Especially when you look at now, what is it that we are confronted with? Our children are growing up. We pay all these monies to take them through school, and then now they become qualified. But there's a problem that happens there. And you know what that problem is? They move from being students to being pensioners. You get your child is 25 years and he's a pensioner basically. He has skipped this phase of working because there are no jobs. There are no jobs. So when you are a parent and you're working, you now have to basically continue to work so that you can support your
Mm,
child who can't find a job. And when you
yeah.
go and
And
you haven't, and this is where now the mentality of the EFF is so irritating. Then they will say, but you have a distaste for your black brothers. Why don't you go and fight the Ruperts who are taking the minerals and stuff? And then I ask them a simple question. I'm saying for a person who's in the squatter camps, eh, who goes and looks for a job at a restaurant, construction, at a mine. And then when
yeah,
they're in line, they find that there's 10 foreigners in front of them. Are you expecting them to go and fight the
right.
rootlet?
It's the
You're
same
not
as if
making
somebody
sense.
breaks into your house. Are you going
Exactly.
to first complain at the police station, or are you going to deal with the immediate
No,
threat? It's in
no,
front of
you
you. It's
deal
just
you
logic.
deal with the immediate threat. Now you come and you tell someone who's sitting in the squat against go and fight Rupert. Are you out of your mind? I'm going to deal with the threat that is in front of me
Makes no
right
sense.
now. That's how it works.
And again, it's the Ruperts and them that are involved with the network that's bringing these people here as well. So one of the ways to actually fight Rupert is by crippling one of his syndicates.
Exactly.
You
You
actually
see,
you stop one of the syndicates by fighting the powder. We're crippling one of the syndicates that are being that
right
have
now.
been a part of the network by the elites. That's how we actually fight Rupert, by stopping one of their agents, because these people
Exactly.
have now posed themselves and presented themselves as agents of, I can't say that word. It's a terror. That word. They're agents of
Yeah.
that, and that's what they're trying to push in our country. They're trying to destabilize us in the same way that their countries have been destabilized, by using the same mechanisms, the same mechanics of bringing foreign people, even if they speak the same language as us, or people from within the country that have been bought and paid for and trained
Yeah.
to carry out a certain mission, an assignment. This is why we have to be, our sense of danger now has to be heightened as we're transitioning
Mhm.
away from Ubuntu to understanding that there are real threats here outside that we need to be more sensitive to, that we need to be more understanding of, and we need to be, the next generation of young men need to be better trained. We cannot continue to perpetuate this thing, yaure, ke menate fela, ke turn up, ke jwala, ke nyaupe, ke menate, ke kuku, ke nyashi. No, bafethu. This cannot be the culture. Our cultures are not going to be defined by what we're being shown by the Black American standard in television, where it's housewives of hip hop, and even the slang, the way the youth is talking. There's like an identity crisis. What are they trying? And I think we have to take this thing very seriously, because I think one of the biggest problems across Africa is also that of identity. What are Africans actually trying to be? What are they aspiring to become and towards? It's a very confusing thing, because we're not intentional about what we're trying to breed and the new generation of people that we're trying to create. Hence why they're taken across to and fro. Anything that comes, they go with it. They don't understand the importance of preserving the homeland, because they've never been actually taught in a formalized way why this thing is important. We had the 100-year frontier wars, Samakosa. We've had so many battles where blood has been shed. And these young men need to understand what it means to be a South African man. There is a history and legacy here of defending this homeland. These resources and facilities were not just given to you because white people decided. White people could not do what they wanted to do here. We stopped them. In other African countries, they were successful. We stopped them. They could not do it. And we're
Exactly.
not about to let up now. And this thing has to be, we have to formalize this education, institutionalize this education in a way where we can be confident to know that by age 7, age 10, age 13, 16, 18, this is the type of byproduct we're producing in the country, because we formalized this type of education and this type of cultural awareness and this type of historical education to understand. Right now, our curriculum does not actually teach anything about who we are. It's just teaching, you were colonized and this. It doesn't teach about the great warriors, the great civilizations, the great chiefdoms, the great leaders that we've had, the different wars that were fought, the different famines and disasters that we faced, and how we need blueprints. What Africa is lacking is this is why it's so difficult for us to work together with other Africans, because what are they bringing to the table? We need to be exchanging blueprints, not immigration. No, I can give you the blueprint. You are my neighbor. Your house is in disarray. My house is in order. It doesn't mean you can just come willy nilly whenever you feel like it to come live in my space and take advantage of my resources. No, I can offer you a blueprint on how you can develop yourself, because historically, this is how we dealt with this thing. Historically, this is how we dealt with this thing. And then we just develop those blueprints. They're like patents on development. And until we get to that point where we can start institutionalizing this in a packaged way, where we know by the time this young man reaches the age of 16, 18, 21, we're producing a certain type of man that we know he's going to carry this legacy that we're building into future generations. We've given him the blueprint. He understands how to develop. He understands how to build. He understands the importance of the type of education where we're in control of the syllabus and what is being taught. It's in fact education for the sake of education, and then you're going to end up unemployed. No, we need to be empowering these guys with the real skills to understand that when the
Mm.
system is trying to do this, this is how you subvert. This is how you invert. So, hey
Analysis.
man, yeah, 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 Brad.
Look, man, you look at the at Europe, you look at Asia and all that. Those countries never got to where they are because of their women. And I've got nothing against women. Um,
Hundred
they got
percent, hundred
they
percent.
got there because their men stood up and they said we will be counted. That's how they got there. Until you solve a black man's problem, you haven't solved the black race's problem. We
Hundred
need our
percent.
men
It
to
starts with
stand
the
up
men.
and be
100%.
counted, you know. And it's the only way we'll be able to move this continent further. And also, you hear
Yeah.
Pan Africanists talking about, yeah, Africa must be one and stuff like that. I'm saying, you know what? Eh? Here's a better way of looking at it. I need you to be in your country doing what you need to be doing so that Africa can be developed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come and caucus in one spot, running from your responsibilities, and then you say, no, we need to be one. No, that's not sustainable. All of Africa
Yeah.
needs to be developed. And it makes it
Mm.
easier if you in Burkina Faso, you are standing on business in Burkina Faso. I stand on business in South Africa. It makes it easier for everyone else. Look at the situation which is confronting us already in Africa. We are now talking about sub-Saharan Africa in our discussions. The world, when they talk about it, they talk about sub-Saharan Africa. What's wrong with north of Sahara? Because north of Sahara has been basically taken over by the Arabs. Morocco, Libya, Egypt,
True.
Tunisia,
Yeah.
all those countries. These are Middle
Mm.
Eastern people, but they have taken over the whole of North Africa. So if we continue running away, ultimately we'll be having basically half of Africa. It's only black up until you get to Kenya. And then the
True.
rest of it is another race. Maybe it's the
Yeah.
Chinese or it's people from Europe again and stuff because these men don't want to stay in there and cultivate. So if we
Facts.
are really interested in Africa, all of it must be developed. It can't just be South Africa. It can't just be men running away. We need to guard all of it. Every inch of Africa should be guarded.
This thing of men running away is such a shameful thing because it's only when you travel overseas that you understand the impact, the lack of respect. Because oftentimes African men will claim, oh, it's race, it's about race, it's xeno, and it's not. It's that you're not respected because of how the men behave, irrespective of what those men are doing in those countries that is bad.
Mm,
It's more
mm,
about in their homeland. When people do a Google search or try to do some research to see what development has come from the independence of these countries, and somebody actually posted a side-by-side picture. It was comparing the Jollof country with Hiroshima that was hit by a nuclear bomb. And to see the level of development in Hiroshima now,
yeah.
and then compared it to the Jollof country, it's embarrassing because what does that say about us as men? I think we have to take this thing personally. Every man has to internalize this thing and really sit down and look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, are we doing enough to deserve the respect that we claim we should be getting from the world, from African women, etc., etc.? Even the scrawny Russian guy that's having his way with Kenyan and Ghanaian women, and even before that, there was that Eve Soze guy in South Africa doing auditions. And why are African women running to these men? It's an indictment on us as African men, as black men, that our women could look to even a scrawny, short Russian guy. Not handsome, nothing. There's nothing about him that says status or a symbol of anything, symbol of strength, nothing. And then the men were complaining online saying, why is it so easy for African? I can tell you why it's so easy. This thing is very easy to answer. We know in our heart of hearts why. And until we command the respect of the world, our women also, it'll be very difficult for them to look at us and say, okay, these men have built something and developed something that makes us
Mm.
want to also stay with them, want to also protect the culture and preserve it. People joke that, yeah, you guys are selling the country with your wombs, etc., etc. Yes, this is a real thing that it can happen and can actually make you go extinct. It can actually make your culture go extinct. Your group of people can go extinct because of it. It's not actually funny. It's a serious thing. And at some point, the men have to rise up. And I'm glad, at least in South Africa, the conversations I'm having, katalk or like privately
Mm.
with South African men, my brother, we're ready. We're
People are
ready. We're
hurtful. People
ready.
are hurtful there.
Guys are not playing out here. Guys are ready. It's
People
just a
are
matter of
hurtful.
now expanding this thing to even the smaller towns. No, it mustn't just be in the metro. Even in the smaller towns, Majita Ateng, and a lot of guys are sitting unemployed. We should be training these guys, Rabakinya, into, you know, getting them, organizing it in such a way that it's a disciplined organization, disciplined front. Huskabale any ill-disciplined people. We must get these young boys, these young men, also off the streets and help them understand the importance of what it is to defend your homeland. So I'm seeing positive signs in South Africa.
True. The ground is fertile. Even in my circles, there's people previously who wouldn't even touch the invasion issue, which we are confronted with. But now they are saying, you know what, we can't go on like this. We can't go on like this. So I'm afraid the red berets, they can't read the room. The results that we got in the elections, the previous elections, was to say, dude, we do not like what you're putting on the table. We want to put our
Mm,
children first. We want to put our children first.
yes,
We must have legacy for our children. So
yes.
you can't come here and prioritize other people. And then they would say things like crime is crime. There's crime in all countries and stuff like that and stuff like
It's
that.
funny. They say that, but when a Nigerian, a Jollof gets unalived, all of a sudden it's Zeno. It's not just crime as crime. There's a double standard for us. Everything with us, we're
What I
held
say
to a
is
very high
crime,
standard.
crime is not crime. Crime is not it's not created equal. There's levels to this thing. When your children are
Yeah.
breaking the furniture in the house, now you're going to be angry. But when your neighbor's children are breaking the furniture, it takes on a different level of offense.
And even
Different
even
level of offense.
worse, the fact that I broke a plate in my kitchen is not an invitation for you to come and break plates and say, but you also
Exactly.
break plates.
You
This
broke the
is
plate.
foolish logic.
I
I don't,
mean, I
to
mean,
say, but you also break.
dude.
So why add to my problems? Shouldn't you, as a good neighbor, come to alleviate the stress, not add to it and say, but your children also break plates, your cousins
Can
also
you
break
imagine?
plates, so why can't I also? You're fighting for the right to cause destruction. Like,
It's nuts. I
no.
see you've got Anissa here.
Yeah. Let me unmute. Oh, you guys know each
Hi,
other?
good morning,
Morning, morning.
morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good,
We're
good.
very well. Fine, thanks, and you.
That's great. I'm assuming and I'm hoping that because I came in and I think it was just a little bit too soon, but your conversation and the way that you were speaking intrigued me immediately. So before I continue, I doubt by what I've picked up that it's going to be an issue, but it is important for me to first ask, what is your stance on race? I can start with me being a South African, a proud South African. I know I get a lot of like HATE, and a lot of bad things are said, but there's nothing that anybody can do to take the South Africanness out of me because I was born um, post apartheid. So we have a different kind of mentality. And it's very important for me to understand that I'm speaking to people that are on the same level as I am, and that we see beyond the color of skin, but more what we can do for our country and our people and our future generations to come, because those are the type of people that I'd like to have discussions with.
No, 100%. And we also have to be mindful of the fact that we're dealing with a globalist agenda as far as the whole mass immigration, destabilization of different countries, and then finding ways to divide these nations and cause tension either across cultural lines, racial lines, gender lines, etc., etc., etc. So I think it's important for us to understand that there is a collective, some call them the global elites, that are deliberately trying to cause destabilization, anger, infighting within countries. So we don't have a problem of race or a problem of culture. If we're patriotic South Africans, we understand what it is that we're fighting for, and we understand who the forces or the forces that are against us accomplishing these goals, who those people are. I think it's important for us to identify that and understand what it is that we're fighting for and fighting to protect. So, in that regard, I think we're all on the same page.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, because now, thank you. Sorry, man. I finally feel like I found a panel where it's now about how we're gonna move forward. What are we gonna do for the country? This seems like you are very critical thinkers, you are intellectual, and this can be an actionable platform. And I thank you for requesting for me to join up. Thank you.
Yeah, and Anissa, for me, South African first before I am African. So that's how proudly South African I am. And anyone who has been born in South
100%.
Africa is in my team. So, but I also understand, as siblings in a house, we do have our own squabbles and stuff like that. But that does not take away from the fact that we are South Africans. And basically, if we are going to solve the problems of humanity, it will only happen if everyone is in their corner, they stay in their lane. If you're an American, stay in America, sort out America, and then we will meet on the global stage and talk about, development and things like that. If you are an African, stay in Africa, do what you need to be doing there. If you are an Asian man, that's what I'm saying. So I am South African and I love this country. And that's it. And if I may just say this, on these panels, especially when we are talking to the Jollof people, they would be saying it's like they want us to get rid of our fellow white South Africans so that they can come in. And I'm saying, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. How do we get rid of people that are resourceful and we replace them with you?
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
bringing zero
identifying
value.
the strategy. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to add just quickly. It's very important that we're able to actually see how different cultural groups are trying to destabilize us. That's one of the weapons. You'll get the Jolloffs saying things like, oh, you must chase a certain race out or you must treat them. These are the same people rushing and running to those countries in the West to obtain citizenship, to obtain passports. It's very hypocritical because they can see the potential of how the country can develop and grow once we're all working together as South Africans that prioritize South Africa. And that's what they don't want. And we have to be able to see through these things and not allow people to divide us through racial or cultural lines. And I think we've done a really good job of it so far, being able to quell all of these attempts at causing division within the country, and which ultimately are to stop us from developing.
But you also have those internal sellouts that will come and say, no, yeah, you should be focusing on. And then I said something very outlandish at some point, but it was just to drive a point home. They say, yeah, but don't you see race and all that? No. I see race, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. If someone wants to build, and we are from the same house, which is South Africa, why not? Why not? And here's the thing,
100%.
an analysis that a lot of these Pan-Africanists don't see. We have whitey South Africans, whitey South Africans who are prepared to even unalive for this land. I
Yes.
remember in the past, where they would call the English speaking white South Africans. This is I'm talking now about the Afrikaners. They would call the English speaking South Africans soties, and it was sort of like a derogatory term, meaning they call them soties because they were saying one foot is in South Africa, one foot is in England. So their middle leg is dangling in the ocean. It's full of salt. So that's why they call them soties. It's because these people came here and they basically removed any affiliation to Europe, and hence the term Afrikaner, to say we are there and we are building. This is now our land as much as it is Black South Africans' lands. Yes, you will get those that are extremists and who took Trump's offer to say, okay, we want out of this country. And they went to the United States. And by the way, it's not going so well for them. Look, part of the job that I do now is to deal with I'm in finance. So we deal with trends, what's happening, money flows and stuff like that. And now we have a net inflow of South Africans who had immigrated coming back. There's more South Africans coming back than those that are going overseas to look for greener pastures. Because you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, it's prohibitively expensive. It's unlivable. You go to the UK, it is extremely expensive. Even if you've got a good job, but you're just scraping by. And the same thing of the cost of living crisis is also creeping into America. So when they look at it and say it's a no-brainer, I have to go home. Yes, it might be tough, but it's much better than here. You can't buy a house in Australia. You can't buy a house in New Zealand. It is bonkers. So these intruders, they come in and then they want to look for how can we divide them in South Africa, because when we divide them, then we'll be able to rule, or we'll be able to have our way with that country. It's not going to happen.
100%.
It's not going to happen.
That's like the part of the 10 steps of colonialism is divide and conquer. And however, with that being said, sadly, there are millions of South Africans from all races that when like things started getting bad, and I could say from around 2008, millions of South Africans did migrate because at that time they could. And if you have to look at it, if you look at the situation that we've been left in with these illegal foreigners and everything, the corruption and everything that's going on, it's kind of double standard to say to only concentrate on the ones that ran. But the ones that had the opportunity to leave when they saw things were getting bad did it because they saw what was coming. And however, we were blinded by many things, by promises, and also a very dangerous thing I believe is an uneducated voter. I feel like we need to educate the people more. I feel there's not enough information.
Politicians love those, eh?
Excuse me?
Politicians love those uneducated voters.
Of course they do. I mean, those, and it like unalives my soul, because I look at them and I think to myself, are you really looking at your own people and underestimating their intelligence to this very day. Like, times have changed, technologies done so much for so many people. People are just like, we're on another level, like compared to what we were. Okay, like I was born, like I said, in the early 90s. So between then and now, there's a major gap in the amount of information that people are getting and are accessible to. So in this very day and age, like with this State of the Nation address, the things that these people had said, I looked at them as if they were undermining my fellow South African brothers and sisters. And with that, the intellect, the mentality that they push is absolutely arrogantly disrespectful to every South African.
No, but the people are
100%.
waking up.
And
The people are waking up.
yes,
It's not going to fly any longer. We are no longer buying what they're selling. We are at the point where we're saying, you know what, you're not there to rule us. We have nominated you to execute our mandate, and the result has been dismal. So it's not going to fly anymore. It's not going to fly anymore. People are waking up, and the
100%.
ground is
And
ready.
And we're exercising active citizenry now, which, unlike in previous years, citizens were not as concerned with things in the political realm as they are now. For example, I was watching the interview yesterday. It was very, very annoying because Tulani Mavoso from Immigration was on SABC talking to Jacinta. And Jacinta is one of us. She's not some political leader with a
Yeah,
high ranking position. She's
yeah.
just a concerned citizen who's one of us, who can articulate her thoughts very well, who understands the Constitution, because there are many South Africans who are exactly like that, that just don't have the platform to be able to speak face to face with these so-called ministers and politicians to challenge their views, because it's not being done by our journalists. Our journalists and the media in South Africa is captured. The right questions are not being asked in these so-called press conferences. But in that one-on-one debate where Tulani was being questioned by Jacinta, you could tell the difference between somebody who has engaged with the immigration laws and engaged with the Constitution and has correctly interpreted it, and somebody who has been trained to spew political jargon. Because all Tulani Mavuso was doing was trying to deflect using the typical political jargon that politicians usually get away with saying in a one-way street of communication where there's no pushback. And Jacinta, in real time, in the heat of the moment, was able to offer rebuttals that Tulani was not able to respond to. I mean, it was a beautiful thing to see his entire argument collapsing in the face of real lived experiences and perspectives from South Africans. Because one of the things he kept emphasizing was that the Constitution is there to uphold and protect and defend the citizens of South Africa. Then Jacinta gave her on the ground, that is not what is happening in reality. And then all he could do is talk about future plans, as politicians do. They always talk about what they're going to do. They never talk about what they've accomplished. And do a recon and show us, this is what we've done, this is what we've managed to accomplish, this was the budget, this is how we achieved the goals that we had promised you in previous years. It's never that. It's always the jargon of we're working to build economic this, economic that we never see the fruition of. We see the country getting worse. And for them to try to intellectually undermine us by speaking over our heads as if they have a better understanding. No, we've engaged with the Constitution. We know the laws, we know the immigration laws, and we know the contradictions between the Constitution and the immigration laws. Ultimately, what I found in that exchange between the two of them was Tulani was making these concessions without even realizing that he was kind of leaking to the public where the problems really lie. Because every time Jacinta challenged him and said, but you're not upholding this, that, and the third, he would then deflect to saying, oh, but we were taken to court by an NGO. Like he used the example of the married couple that took the government to court because they wanted the husband to take the wife's surname. But the question was, what consultation process had you undergone to involve the rest? You cannot make court rulings that affect everybody's lives in the country based on one individual or based on two individuals. Like what these NGOs will do, they'll take the case of one foreigner, take it to court, win in court, and then that will be used as a precedence of what the Constitution of South Africa represents. And Jacinta was trying to say, no, you're supposed to outline to the courts. You are the ones in charge of the country. You cannot be told by your courts or by international NGOs how to run the country, because then why are we voting for you? We should then be voting for the NGOs or the courts to rule us. The judges should be the ones ruling because they're the ones that are making decisions. Every time we say politicians make decisions that put South Africans first, they tell us, but the Constitution is not set in stone. It's not some religious book where we can't make amendments and changes and we are now beholden to this thing till death do us part, until, it doesn't make any sense that this constitution is now being used as an excuse for inaction. And as South Africans who are concerned, the average South African now is getting involved and understanding the necessity of putting pressure. And the more pressure we put on these politicians, the more they start to unravel. And we begin to realize that all of this intellectualism is pseudo. These people are not actually as smart as they present themselves to be. They don't actually understand the laws as well as they claim to know them. Theirs has just been to make a living by looting through the loopholes within the laws. And it's always funny to me when somebody who's not law abiding insists that you should follow due protocol and follow the law, and we are a country that is led by laws, but all of you are corrupt, you don't follow the laws, but you're telling us we must follow them. It's like we're stupid to these people. They don't take us seriously and they undermine our intelligence. I listened to the live streams where we had the white paper submissions, and I'm like, the way they talk down to us as if we don't understand what they're saying, because they're using word salads and trying to mix up English to try to make these things sound complicated. And these things are not complicated at all. Ultimately, if we're reading between the lines, what they're telling us is that the globalists are the ones who are telling them what to do, and they either don't have the capacity or don't have the will to go against or push back, because they were told, why don't you resubmit into the Geneva Convention with reservations? We're not saying don't be a part of the refugee. Hey, this refugee thing will make me very upset, because I don't understand how a third world country that just recently got their independence is offering asylum and refugee status to the most unequal country. We are the most unequal society that just came out of a regime that decimated the people economically, and we're offering asylum. We haven't even built houses and taken care of our own people, but we're offering asylum. It makes zero sense. And that's what tells me that we are under a globalist regime that we, the citizens, have to push back against, because our leaders are failing to do so. They are a part of the same thing. That's why these Ramaphosa, they're signing all these agreements behind our backs, taking loans behind our backs. We have no idea what this government is really up to. We just find out after the fact that they've gotten us involved in things that we shouldn't be involved in. Even with the refugee, they're supposed to be camps. You're not supposed to just integrate the people against the will of the citizens, because we voted for you. You should be consulting us with these things, not just imposing. That means it's a dictatorship. And then every time we push back to say, you guys must let us know, they say no, but the Constitution says it. So what? Is this a dictatorship now? Is it no longer democratic? And then to try to subvert the democratic process by saying, let's make white paper submissions, but then opening it up to foreigners, the very people that we have a problem with. Jacinta put this man in his place very thoroughly, and exposed the fact that there is hypocrisy, there is a double standard. Politicians are using loopholes while pretending to be law abiding. And very soon, we're getting close to the point that now that people understand the laws very well, they're actually able to see which ones are being followed and which ones are not being followed. And it's going to be very difficult for these politicians to convince people to have faith in so-called due process when it's now clear as day that they themselves are not following due process. Then you will not be able to control how the citizens respond once they realize that the laws are a complete farce that are aimed to basically oppress them in their own country.
Did you see that video of this woman? I'm going to assume that she's Nigerian, in Ireland, who's been deported. There's something wrong with her papers, and now she has to be deported, and she's going to be deported.
Yes. Got fake documents from South Africa.
It's
yes.
So we have to be very pragmatic and accept that there are sellouts within the South African system, people that are selling their country, And a lot of them are sitting in Home Affairs, where they've been selling documents and all sorts of things for a quick buck. So these are traitors who, in my humble opinion, I think these people should be sent, to unaliving because of their treasonous activities. So it's no. The ANC, in my humble opinion, now they're at a point where they don't care any longer. Their
Yes.
obsession is, how do I make money quickly, because we know the house is on fire. People are no longer taking us
Yes.
seriously. So at least when we get out of power, I must have enough. I must have enough
And
so
that's
that
the
if the need arises, I can even run away from the country.
yes. A lot of them they've already got the escape route planned out. And we had a way of dealing with traitors. I don't want to get too much into the detail, but we know how to deal with these sellouts. We actually had a systematic way of making an
Exactly.
example of anybody that wanted to be a sellout. And the thing is, we're getting close to where people there's such a desire to go back to that. And
Mhm.
it's scary if you're in government and you continue to undermine the people, because as much as we have Ubuntu, there's another gear we can tap into
Yeah.
to deal with
Yeah.
things in a very decisive way if they refuse to respect us. Welcome, Mzansi. You're a part of the chat. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay, like with that being said,
How are you, fellow panelists? It is very demoralizing to see the state of how people govern our state. Not only the politicians, but also the officials who play a huge role in creating these platforms for these individuals, particularly the so-called Jolofinas and others, because you can clearly see that that woman is not South African. She might be East African or something like that, probably Nigeria or Ghana. And it seems like there's a lot of them doing that nowadays, because a lot of our people who are staying overseas, they would always complain that these people sell themselves as South African. I remember I was on another live last time when these ladies, I think they're in Canada currently, saying a lot of Zimbabweans and Nigerians like to sell themselves as being South African, and they've created a culture where South Africans are now being looked in a different way. The type of character a lot of people internationally know us to be has been stolen away from us because of these individuals. And they're creating a platform where now there's a lot of resentment against South Africans in particular. I even remember this lady who's at the airport complaining of systems that are being used now to sort of like eliminate South Africans from gaining access into certain countries. So we are noticing, and we know that at the tip of the iceberg, it is our officials who are to blame for selling those papers. People come here into South Africa, get papers, and then go to other countries and claim to be South African. It's not something new. And also, they know how to manipulate our laws. Like, they are so informed about our systems and how our laws work. Some other lady also explained that with the former Middle East schools, they would enroll their children and probably pay for 2-3 months. Then all of a sudden, then they apply for exemption, then claim that they do not have money to pay, whilst they coming to fetch the kids, their schools, coming with big fancy cars and all that. So it's really really a problem when you find people who claim to be African brothers or African sisters, but have completely taken advantage of your resources, of your state, in many ways than one. In many ways than one. So it really needs us to be careful, and also to align ourselves as South African in challenging the systems, such as these white papers that commonly go out without people being aware and actively participating, and also not forming a quorum to say the percentage average South African minimum number that is supposed to be participating must be this number. If ever that participation has not been done from South Africans, that white paper can't be passed through. Those are some things that we really need to engage the government on. And so I move.
Thank you, Baranaka. And Nyasa, you wanted to say something just before?
I wanted to also just ask rather than make a statement, but I do feel that us as South Africans, we also need to take accountability, because I personally feel like I'm at a place where I don't know what to eat me as a South African, because when we were the first generation that had the privilege of singing the Nkosi Sigalele, our national anthem, as it is today. We were the first group, we grew up in multicultural neighborhoods and multi-racial playgrounds, and we shared all this Ubuntu, this rainbow nationness. And one thing about that is when you're a child and you learn to love somebody without looking at the color of their skin, you create something that no other nation in the entire world possesses. So, with that being said, there are many people that don't believe in this rainbow nation and things, but we do exist. We do exist. We can obviously live together. We all have the same mindset. We all love this country. We don't need the division. And whenever somebody comes in with that mindset, we understand it's chaos. When there's chaos, it means it's a lefty. We need to either get rid of these people or try and educate them, because these are the ones that hold us back. And accountability is very important as a citizen, because if you're going to just deteriorate, because what happens in a pressure cooker? When things get tough, everybody retreats into their own corners, and it's easier to blame than to take accountability. I do understand everybody didn't start from the same baseline, but from 94 to where we are now, I don't think most South Africans can comprehend the amount of trouble that we are in. And if we are not going to do something as in now, it might just be too late forever. If we're speaking about the water and the electricity and the rent, everything, I'm against BRICS. I don't know about you guys, but I just don't feel something's not right there, because we're not informed enough. They make decisions without. You want to call us a democratic country, right? How many of us had the opportunity to vote for BRICS? Yes, everybody's praising it, and those same people that praise it are not benefiting from it. So it's things like that where I feel us as citizens should take accountability, whether you know, and if you know, then you teach. Otherwise, you're going to just be remembered for the future and your children as one of those who were part of the destruction. I mean, and the analysis said, the way they undermine our intelligence is pathetic. It's beyond me. And if we're not going to take accountability and responsibility and actually be like, no, never mind them. Let us stand together and do something. Let us just do what we need to do. They will automatically just disappear, because truth and goodness and constructiveness and productiveness and all of these things speak louder than empty promises. So that's what I wanted to say something along those lines. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Look, guys, I don't know how you feel. Nah? Maybe you can give me your inputs here. But the water crisis thing, paint me skeptical on it. Nah? I think it's just manufactured. It's a manufactured crisis so that the politicians can
100%.
loot.
It's
Look at what
leverage.
happened. Look at what happened with electricity, load shedding. Did we build new power stations? Did we now all of a sudden stop exporting our coal to Europe? We didn't do all of that. Did we get rid of employees who are, who have got paychecks that are overinflated at ESCOM? None of that was done. But all of a sudden, as we were heading towards now the elections, all of a sudden, load shedding stops. I think this is just a feeding trough for the politicians to now act as the solution to the problem that has been manufactured. Load shedding just
I
disappeared.
agree 100%.
Load
These are
shedding just
bargaining
disappeared.
chips.
And how can you tell
They're
me of now we're having water shortages and we've been having floods? So many rains, the dams are full. And you want to come and tell me about water shortages? No, it's just manufactured. It's just a way for politicians to look for ways to say, okay, how can we loot? Because now we can't use the same load shedding anymore. So we have to think of something else.
No,
Just
but
like they
however,
did
there
with
is,
COVID.
if you want to be realistic about it, there is thousands of kilometers of pipes that just haven't been maintained and serviced because tenders and subcontractors were given money that were pocketed and put in other places, and the jobs, the infrastructure hasn't been maintained. So,
But
like,
that was the
I think
same
that's deliberate.
spiel we were given with electricity. No, we need to build more power stations. We need to do this and all that. We built Kusile, we built Midupi, and we still had load shedding. At inflated prices. But the politicians wanted something, so they have to, there has to be a story, like you were saying, analysis. Our media is captured. They are singing for their supper, and there are certain things that they are going to overlook. That's the nonsense they're going to feed us to say no, 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 no. Unmaintained infrastructure, this and that and the other and all of that. I'm telling you now, I can smell a rat. I can smell a rat in all of this.
I agree 100%. It's always, politicians always have to have some type of bargaining chip that they can use for elections. And so they can also present themselves as the heroes that are bringing solutions, when in actuality, they're creating crises
Yeah.
and compromising us to the extent that we are now grateful for things that should be standardly provided by the country since we're paying tax. But now we're grateful to have water, we're grateful to have electricity, and our standards keep being lowered and our expectations keep being lowered. And this is how they're keeping themselves relevant and in power. And guys, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but for me personally, I don't believe in the political system because this leverage, resources, land, and all these things have been obtained through bloodshed. They've been obtained through wars. I just personally, I'm not saying I don't vote, but the process of giving up all of these things and this amount of power being relinquished over the fact that we put, an X on a ballot, for me, it's hard to believe. Hence why we see so many forms of manipulation around elections, whether it's election rigging, actually just rigging the numbers themselves on the system, or bringing in illegitimate voters, or like what we're seeing right now with the mass immigration crisis, where new voter bases are being brought in to basically drown out our voices and to make it seem like the process is still democratic, even though there's some fraud and corruption involved in how the votes are being obtained. I just don't see how power is going to be relinquished through the process of voting, in the same way that we've seen also with the white immigration paper, all the forms of corruption that are involved in trying to drown out our voices, so that tomorrow they can say, "But guys, we opened it up to you guys, and these are the results." The conclusion at the end of the day is that we have to go ahead with the status quo. So it's a difficult thing for me to imagine with so much at stake, ports, land, resources, etc., 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 that are controlled by global elites, global superpowers that have their puppets that they've planted in various countries to ensure that the status quo remains as it is. And everybody suffers irrespective of race. Because even this race thing, we have to really look at it very critically, because I believe in cultures and I believe in cultural compatibility. There's many examples we can use. We can go to Asia, where we've got the North and the South Korean conflict, people that look exactly the same. We can use Japan, that colonized Korea and, I mean, did heinous things to them historically. We can look at China. We can look at so many examples of where if you are a weaker cultural group, usually you are exploited, you are abused, basically you are bullied. And if you're a stronger cultural group and you have more leverage, that's when we start to see how power can corrupt, irrespective of how people look or the color of this, that, and the other. I think society's been indoctrinated with a lot of these things that make us look away from things like cultural compatibility. Are our cultures compatible? Do we have similar values and value systems? Do we have shared value systems? And if so, then we can work together to fortify one another, to build one another, to strengthen one another. Those are good partnerships. But I think sometimes politicians want us, and especially in times when we start to look like we are coming together, they'll release a new story that causes that just causes us, that stirs up a storm. It'll be a gender issue to stir up the gender issue between men and women when they see us actually now working together, or there'll be a racial story, someone beating, something. It will go viral. There'll be a video, or they'll stir up the Xeno talk again, and they'll show you a clip of, the media is very selective about, we had two South African women that were unalived execution style in the back of the head by foreign nationals. It didn't make the news. We didn't get interviews from the family members. But because of this Uber driver, this thing has gone viral. It's all over the world. It seems like certain things are being prioritized more than others, as if the life of a South African actually weighs less or has less value. And I think we have to start educating and having these types of discussions, educating one another, because this information, the analysis that we're providing in these chats is not institutionalized knowledge in schools. So a lot of people are unaware and are only conscientized when we're having these discussions to bring us all to the same page, to realize what we're actually fighting against here. It's not one another, particularly if you're a patriotic South African and you want to help fight and build and defend. Like guys, I'm from the Free State, which is predominantly Basotho, the Afrikaner cultures. I'm telling you, people are ready to die for the country. They're ready. They're ready, and they can see everything that's happening. I can name towns that our CBDs have been completely overtaken by the Jollof people that are selling powder. I mean, these guys camp outside schools, outside schoolyards, to try to proposition young boys, young girls coming from school to get them hooked from an early age. You cannot see that, walk past that every day and turn a blind eye, irrespective of what the color of your skin or your culture. When you see that and you understand that this thing is wrong, we've had meetings in our towns across different cultural groups, racial groups, talking about the same thing and how we're going to address it. We've got groups on the ground that are doing amazing work, to the extent that we start getting threats from municipalities because they say, hey, hey, you guys are trying to show us up. Why did you post on Twitter? And we're thinking, hey, we don't have pothole, we don't have water, we don't have this. We're fixing the pipes ourselves. We are fixing the infrastructure ourselves. And that requires all of us to partner together and exchange and share skills in order to build the nation and build the country. So this thing where people, invaders, and even people from inside that are sellouts, that are constantly trying to stoke up the same conversations. The Red Berets are always talking about race and this, and you must hate this person, and then also the Jolloffs come in and say, but you must hate this group, and you cannot tell us who to like and who not to like. I mean, it's ridiculous. Then what's the point of saying that you respect our sovereignty? Even the Pan-Africanist movement originally, Kwame Nkrumah, it was never about, he even said himself that you have to respect the sovereignty. Pan-Africanism does not mean that you undermine the sovereignty of individual countries. This is why I cannot stand when people come to South Africa and then they complain. If South Africa is not to your liking, go to a country. Africa is very big. There's 54 countries. Go to a country that is suited to your liking. The fact that they don't want to leave tells me that they have nefarious intentions. Because if it was really about them just having peace and happiness, they would just go to another country that suits their particular taste. Yet they'd rather decampaign and speak ill of South Africa over and over, to try to basically rally up the whole continent to turn against us, as if they're planning on doing something or trying to take the country by force, which they will fail to do. Because one thing we know about these people is that they're cowards and that they're runners. With enough pressure, they'll do the same thing they did in their home countries, which was to run away. So what we have to do is stand our ground and be able to identify who our actual enemies are, not who they are telling us we must hate.
Yeah, but guys, and I agree completely with what you're saying. We just have to come to an understanding and acceptance that our media is it's also part of the problem. They are managing us. They're managing us. I mean, during
100%.
the Zuma years, ne, every day we knew in the news we'd be hearing about state capture and things like that. What happened to the $5 million that were found in Cyril Ramaphosa's house? It's
The
dead quiet.
PR around Cyril
Dead
Ramaphosa needs to be
quiet.
studied. Yo. Cyril.
Dude, it's crazy. So our media, which is why I no longer watch the news and stuff like that, because I know they're just going to manage us. I prefer these democratized platforms where people can go and basically speak their minds freely and all of that. What I said is, if it's important, I know it will find me. It always finds me in these streets of social media. So our journalists have lost all credibility. All credibility. It's like now what you're saying with regards to the unalived Uber driver and all that. And here's the interesting thing where I said, you know what, we'll never take the joy of people seriously, because we as South Africans, when someone commits crime and he's a South African, just like there was that other lady who was a powder mule, was caught, I think, in those Asian countries, and then was sentenced to unaliving. You never saw South Africans going on protest for that lady. The understanding that we have is, if you go to other people's countries, you respect their laws and you abide with those laws. That's it. Simple. If they decide to unalive you, we're not gonna, go create a GoFundMe for you and all that. But the thing with Nigerians is, you find that even if a person is committing crime, they will find a way to come and complain. No, it's xenophobia and things like that, and all that. So you can't really reason with people who think like that. They would even defend people who are doing crimes and stuff like that. But yeah, having said that, I think our media, no, completely managed. Completely managed. They are pushing a narrative.
So what do you
100%.
guys think? What do you guys think about the fact that why these people are running from the countries? Because I look at it like, obviously we know about the Boko Haram and the Sharia law and the terrible things that they do run away from. So I don't look at them as peaceful people. I feel like South Africans need to also take that into consideration. We have a lot of humility. We are very hospitable people, and I think we underestimate the savageness of the capability of the savageness that these people have, because of the poverty and the war, WHR, and all the terrible things that they come from. For them to be so arrogant, yeah, I think that we shouldn't overlook that at all, because they obviously already know way more about doing bad and good than what South Africans do. So that's just to keep us one up,
Look, I think someone said about the globalists, that there's the ruling class and they basically want to manage us. We have to push their agendas. Look, what I would say is, I think it's going to be difficult for them to contain this thing, because you go to Europe, those countries are well resourced. and stuff like that. But the citizenry now, at this point, are at a point where they feel, you know what, there's too much influx of people coming into our countries. You see that with Tony Robinson in the UK. You see that in Germany, all over Italy. The people are now at a point where they say, you know what, we're not going to wait for our governments to decide on this. We are taking this matter into our own hands. So it's not a South African invention. It's globally. People are becoming. I mean, even Trump. The mere fact that Trump was voted into power was as a result of the influx of foreigners, where now the citizens were saying, you know,
100%.
this is
Yeah.
unsustainable. Anyone who's going to come and say, I'm going to deal with immigration, we are going to put them into power. So it's growing. People are becoming agitated, and the ruling class can forget about it. Because the thing about politicians, they want mayhem. When there's mayhem, the dust is all over. That's when they get a chance to basically steal. But when everything is in order and all of that, it's very difficult for them to get away with their schemes. So it's all about divide and rule. That's the. But no, the people on the ground are fed up. Truly fed up.
Mzansi, any inputs, any thoughts?
Yeah, I
Similar to
just requested for the volume to be turned down a bit because I'm with someone. She didn't go to work. She's a bit sick. Yes, there's definitely a big challenge in terms of internationally. Of different people going to those countries in huge numbers and definitely taking advantage of systems in those locations. Remember in China, it was so bad that other Nigerians had to re-emphasize the fact that they were not Chinese, they were Nigerians, and they were there in China for greener pastures. So they shouldn't, or even start picketing in China. You know, it went as far as they picketed in China. I think in around 2008, that's where they first saw the hugest influx of Nigerian people. And around 2013, the number was around 300,000. Don't forget, Nigeria is like one of those biggest countries in terms of human population in Africa, and a percentage of their country, if it decides to go to a particular location, they can simply flood that location, such as South Africa for one. So when we speak out against these type of situations that we face, they're like, no, but Nigerians are still in Nigeria, but not understanding how many they are. Like, I think it's isn't is it 300 million or something like that?
My brother, what's about this thing, yeah, population in Nigeria is a funny topic because they say officially that it's 230 million. But
Yeah.
the last time they took a census was over 20 years ago, and they only measured the southern part of Nigeria. They ignored the north, which means you can times it by 2. They should be around half a billy. That's where they're sitting. And when Nigerians act as if, oh, you guys only have 8 million of us, it's a drop in the ocean. In comparison to our population, that's a huge. They outnumber some of our indigenous cultures here in South Africa.
Exactly.
It's an
And that
invasion.
is, and it's the biggest problem ever. You know, for one to claim that no, there's still too many of us in Nigeria for you guys to be complaining. And this other guy also said, you know, one of the other reasons why a lot of them go to other countries is because their VPN is blocked from accessing dating sites where they scam these ladies. So they prefer VPNs where they can access any dating sites so they can start scamming people. You know, a lot of Nigerians are into scamming females in different countries, more especially in those first world countries. So that's another reason why a lot of them, you'd find them, someone is not even working, is going around Joburg the whole day, but that person has still got a proper lifestyle and is living well. So those are the other reasons. So it's like it's so confusing to find ourselves in these positions, but also knowing that we are feeling the pinch down on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, and they like marrying those old white women for
Hey,
the money,
hey, hey,
and it's just
hey,
like
these
I'm
people, they don't
saying,
mind,
this
eh?
takes guts, eh? This takes guts, dude.
Hey,
Yo,
they don't mind. They don't
how
mind.
do you look at an old woman that way? I don't
My
know,
question
man.
is the
It's
pain is the pain of changing worse than the pain of staying the same? Because to live like that, where you are bringing yourself to the level of taking geriatrics from other countries, marrying them, being intimate with them when you know there's no feelings there, isn't that more painful than just staying in your country and developing it?
exactly.
Like
That is
swimming
complete you.
across oceans.
Just
That's demoralization at its core.
yo. No, man. I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe I'm old school like that, but there's a level in your psyche where you start to look at ladies as a mother figure and things like that. So I don't know, man. I don't know how they do it. It's a different culture
That's why I
altogether.
think yes, and we have cultural Nigeria is culturally incompatible with so many countries all over the world, hence why they are met with so much rejection because what is acceptable for them is just and I read somewhere there's a content creator here on TikTok who goes by the name of Ace. He's a Nigerian himself and he often reveals he exposes a lot of the problems with the Nigerian mentality. And one of the things he exposed was that majority of Nigerians are mentally deformed. And because they don't have the healthcare system that can properly diagnose and treat their people, they basically go all over the world undiagnosed, doing things that they deem as normal, that the rest of the world does not deem as normal. I'll never forget the time when I was in one of somebody else's live, and we were talking about it was Black Americans, the FBA's Foundational Black Americans talking about how they it's unfortunate that they project it onto all Africans because they don't really understand the nuanced cultures
Yeah.
and how different we actually are. So they attribute all the bad behavior of Nigerians to it's an African problem. Africans behave like this, and that's why they're delineating. We're trying to get into these conversations and discussions to explain the nuances and that these cultures behave a particular different way. This culture behaves like this culture behaves like that. It's like a known thing here in Africa. So while we're having this discussion, then a Nigerian joined in, trying to defend nonsense, as they usually do. And then to our surprise, someone from Panama joined in the discussion to say, even in Panama, we are tired of these people. And we asked, like, how are they in Panama? And they were explaining they're running an elite drug syndicate along with a human trafficking syndicate. And as he was venting, really just offloading all the different things that the citizens have experienced, lived experiences that you can't even really debate, he's telling you, this Nigerian man proceeded to, we can do a checklist, called him jealous. He said Nigerians have a hustling spirit, and the people in Panama, they are lazy. The men don't want to
Oh
work.
God.
That's why they're taking their women, etc., etc., etc. We could go on and on, basically calling them poor. He started saying things like Davido,
Story
Burna
of our
Boy,
life.
Dangote can buy your country. But they won't fix Makoko. They won't buy Makoko to fix it, but they will buy foreign countries. It doesn't like the logic doesn't make sense. And everyone in the panel was quiet. We listened and listened and listened. And then the guy from Panama, came back and commented and said, so they asked him, what's your response to what he's saying? Because the guy went on a 5 minute rant, just going on. And the man said, I'm just sitting here witnessing a pathological mental disorder. And he took the words out of everybody's mouths because we were too
Yeah.
shocked to respond. Someone's giving you the lived experience of what your people are doing in their country. And instead of you showing humanity and condemning those actions and separating yourself from the criminality and saying, yes, it is wrong what
Yeah.
they're doing, deal with them as you choose, whether it's through law enforcement or by mob justice, we don't care what they're doing is wrong, deal with them. To show that you're not siding with the criminality, but instead he defended it. We were all shocked. And I think just the cultural compatibility does not align with so many different countries. And it's unfortunate that now they're trying to rebrand themselves as, because their reputation is ruined. Everywhere where they go and people ask them, where are you from? They don't want to say, I'm Nigerian. They say, I'm African, so that we can suffer the same reputational fate that they've caused to themselves. We must suffer it as a continent. That's how spiteful these people are. Someone said their idea of success is not them being elevated, but others being demoted, others being brought down is the definition of success in their country. And we have to flesh out the culturally incompatible people because they're going to ruin generations, particularly when they're making babies. They're going to raise them to actually hate the indigenous or the South African people, the local South African people. And that's going to create a war in future. We're already seeing what's happening with the Algerians, etc., etc., etc. We have a serious generational problem on our hands that needs to be controlled and contained. I don't even want to get into what's going on in Cape Town, where they're now building electric fences on mountains, restricted areas, basically creating another Gaza, right? People say they walk for 20 minutes without hearing a South African accent. It's German, it's this, that, and the third. We have a generational problem on our hands that's going to take sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. Our mindset cannot be in the mindset of instant gratification. We are far away from instant gratification. We have so much work to do in this country to restore order and to restore our cultural integrity and our identities, because there's too many people in the country here that have come with evil intentions. I mean, look what's happening in Eastern Cape with the Ethiopians that are pretending that they're being oppressed by that hospital. They're trying to make policies to accommodate. How do you go to another person's country and ask them to accommodate you instead of you adjusting to their culture? You want to now dictate that this is how the culture should be here. We've got people making threats to Ramaphosa. There's a Mozambican who was busy with the construction on a construction site saying that Ramaphosa said on Monday. I mean, to speak so brazenly to the president of a foreign country, but you don't have the guts to do that to your own president's country. It says a lot about their characters and the cultural incompatibility. We don't think like this. We don't function like this. We go to other people's countries and we're respectful. It's unfortunate now that our passport is being abused so much that when statistics start coming back, these same people that are abusing their privileges in our country are going to come back and say, but you guys are also. You see, I can't deal with this type of logic because for me, I can't debate. What I noticed with certain cultural groups is you're debating people that it's their logic is not connecting in the way that everybody else's is. Like we said, if I break a plate in my kitchen, it is not an invitation for you to come and break more plates and then say, but you also break plates. But at what rate and on whose territory? You cannot break into my house and say, and then tell me that I should go complain to the police or security service outside. No, you are here now. I must deal with you here. You are the immediate threat. That's the logic. So you cannot try to divert our attention to, no, you must go there, you must look at this. And it's just cultural incompatibility. It cannot work. It cannot work. And we needed to have risen up yesterday already, because all the politicians are doing is delaying and delaying and delaying until they're out of office and they can run away. It's just delay tactic. All these talk shops, all these white papers, all these things that are, Ramaphosa is forever talking about, we want to engage in dialogue. It's like, my brother, your term is almost, we're still talking. Talking about what? So we know it's not, no implementation is going to take place. All of the discussions and the democratic process and talk shops, and we're paying money to talk. Madlanga Commission, we're talking. Commission after commission, talking. No arrests, talk. No forward movement, no implementation. People are still coming in the hundreds of thousands, doing as they please. No, South Africa has zero law enforcement. None. It's very selective against South Africans, but there is zero law, and for everyone in Africa has figured this thing out. They have studied our laws. They understand there's no law enforcement. They understand there's loopholes. Even if you're getting arrested, I hate these social media content creators from the political parties that will post pictures of like, okay, we did a powder bust and it's a Jollof National and 22 years old, and we know these people get bail because those drugs have to be taken to a lab to go be tested to see, and it takes a long time. And while that's happening, these people apply for bail and they're back on the same block, back on the same streets where they were selling their powder, doing what they're doing. Obviously, we understand this is a part of a broader syndicate, and these people are just being used as the runners. And we have to get to the bottom of where, the import lines and the whole network of how drugs are reaching us, and that's how we have to actually cripple this thing from the source. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't address the immediate threat that's in front of us right now. We can still disrupt their operation by dealing with the people in front of us, because our youth is de-radicalized. If our youth was radicalized right now, this country would be burning. But they've de-radicalized our youth so much with these syndicates that they're running to distract them. It's alcohol, it's powder, etc., etc. So our youth is very de-radicalized. They're more interested in talking nonsense on podcasts, things that don't make any sense, that are not moving the country forward. And it's a shame, because it's their futures that we're fighting for, but they don't see it. They think it's an integration that's taking. It's not an integration; it's a replacement.
And have you also seen what the Somalis are doing in America?
Yo, it's funny because I have an American friend who's from Minnesota. He told me it is so bad how they're registering these faux company. The worst thing about Somalians is when they're in America, the way they talk, they'll say things like, yes, the white Americans must work for us. They're our slaves. So they're abusing these tax subsidies that they're getting under these fraudulent businesses. And then they go online and they brag about it.
Sure. No, it's a mess.
And then
It's a serious mess.
when Americans it's a mess. When Americans respond as they should, what do the Somalians do? They play victim. They start using the R word, and they start making videos trying to expose that, oh, America is this and that. And it's not that. These Somalians are going into countries knowing exactly what their intentions are, to basically bring corruption to the system and to take people's tax money, registering fraudulent businesses or using the asylum programs. This is why sometimes being compassionate and Ubuntu can be a mistake. And America is learning the hard way. And it doesn't help.
No.
America, it's tough for them because their media is even worse. They're pushing this whole, I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl performance, where the agenda now with America is to basically they're amalgamating. And I've noticed on every continent there's like an amalgamation that's taking place where they erased all over the world the sort of imperialist agenda of erasing indigenous cultural identities with the sort of the national identity, right? So then people bought into, like, okay, we have countries now. Now they're moving into the next step of the globalist agenda, which is to erase the country or the national identity for a continental identity, because they're trying to centralize power. Now imagine if we have all of this insecurity in African countries. We've got wars, insecurity, there's fraud, there's corruption. Now you want to centralize, you want to remove borders, centralize all the corruption, so the looting can be on a continental level. It'll be chaos. Now in America, it's the same thing. They're saying that, hey, America belongs to it belongs to the South Americans, the Latinos, it's the same playbook. They're saying it belongs to Greenland, Canada. We are all one. We are all America. America was built by immigrants. America this, America that. Basically just erasing, the people there that feel like America's their homeland. They say, this is the new identity that's being formed under your noses and you must accept it. The whole Super Bowl performance was about Bad Bunny, who's a Latina. And not just him. There's Billie Eilish at the Grammys pushing this thing. You got that other Nigerian artist who's cosplaying as a Black American, talking about America was built by immigrants. Hey, man, and the Black Americans are saying, hey, you can't say that. This was built by us. We built this. We established this. For you to come and say it was built by immigrants as a generic term. So this agenda, this push, and even in Asia, there's a similar thing where it's about Asian coming together, Asian unity. Power is being centralized by the globalists, and they're erasing national identities to give rise to this continental identity. You're American, you're African, you're Asian, you're European. No countries anymore, no patriotism. If you're a patriotic individual about your country, you're considered a vigilante, you're considered a terror, can't say that word, but now you're being painted a particular way because they're in the next phase of centralizing power for the global elites to control everything. Even if you listen, the World Economic Forum, what they were talking about, how they want to use AI and digital IDs. Hey guys, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble as a globe, and it's crazy to me that they're still infighting over petty issues when these globalists are. They've got Agenda 2030 with all their checklists, their checkpoints of what they're trying to accomplish in various countries, and you can see now Ramaphosa starting to talk about digital IDs the same way that Britain, they pushed back against the digital ID. In India, they tried to do it, it collapsed, it didn't work. And I'm hoping we as South Africans will push back against all of these forms of centralizing power and to create a technocracy that takes away our freedom of ownership and to be able to have access to resources, because very soon they're going to be rationing food, rationing water per family. All the things we've seen about the dystopian future, we're living in it right now. Right? We're getting rations of electricity as we speak. We're getting rations of water as we speak. Next, it's going to be rations of food, because now we got all of these talks about vaccines. We got to vaccinate cows. We got to vaccinate humans. We got to, I mean, what's going on? What is going on?
No, the world is turned upside down. It's on his head. It's on his head. But you know, for me personally, I got humbled in 2020. Because why? Throughout my life, I had this idea that, you know what, well, you know, WAR1 and WAR2, you know, people were still not yet developed and the mentality was all messed up and all that. And then I learned about the Spanish flu, which happened, I think it was 19, roundabout there. And it wiped out so many people, millions of people. And then I thought, all of this is in the past. We are much more developed now. You know, we are much more equipped. There's much more knowledge doing the rounds and stuff like that. But then when COVID happened, I had to eat humble pie, because then I realized, no, it can still happen. Basically, the history can still repeat and all that. And since then, I'm now very skeptical, because I realized that, you know what, when you have peace, you need to cherish it, because it's not an entitlement. It's not a right. You can't get yourself in a situation where you have to rethink everything. And I think we are at that point where we have to rethink everything, because the billionaires, you can see there's that thing of centralizing power and stuff. I don't know if you follow some of the work that Peter Thiel is doing, and all that. It is bonkers, what these people are planning with regards to the human race as a whole. So I'm very much humble now.
It's scary.
And say, you know what, I need to be. There's a time of peace, and there's a time of WAR, and if you have
WAR, for sure.
And if you have been born in a time of peace, you take it for granted sometimes to think, no, this is how it will always be, and that is a blind side, a serious blind side.
And you know, we're dealing, and these globalists, for them, their culture involves the P word, pedo, involves eating. I mean, I've read some of the Epstein files. It's unimaginable. We as South Africans, we couldn't imagine.
Satanic.
We couldn't think. Very, very satanic things. And for them, it's normal. The things that they're doing with little children, where they're dismembering. I mean, you can't imagine it. You're dismembering and then you're eating. Ritualistically, having intercourse, drinking blood, doing. And these are the people that are the decision makers over our countries, that are dictating policy to our presidents, to our politicians, and saying, this is the direction. I mean, that interview yesterday between Tulani Mavuso and Jacinta, you heard Tulani kept repeating the fact that South Africa... Hey, this makes me angry just thinking about it. He's like, South Africa is not an island. We are a part of multinational agreements. We are a part of bilateral agreements. We've signed agreements with other countries. We're working together in collaboration. We are global citizens. And I'm thinking, then Jacinta asked a very good question. Then what's the point of us voting in our country and having national elections if what you're telling us is that you're going to implement the policies that benefit the global agenda rather than the policies that benefit the people? So that tells me that the whole political system is a complete farce, because at the end of the day, they're answering to specific groups of people or a specific group of elites. And these people are not normal human beings. The practices that they engage in are not normal. The things these guys are doing on islands to children behind closed doors, not normal. And the fact that they control our data, they've got all these apps, they're multi-billionaires, they live above the system. Everybody else is subjected to living within the rules of this system. They don't live within this system. They live in a different reality than ours. And these are the people we're saying we're part of the global community with. These are the people we're signing agreements with. People that want to bring questionable vaccines to Africa, that want to bring questionable. I mean, why is Bill Gates, this guy, your job is computers. Why are you telling us about what people should be putting in cows and animals and creating these lab grown meats and etc etc etc? He's involved in our food production. You got JD Vance from America, deputy president, who's buying farmlands across the globe. Why are they doing these things, including Bill Gates? It seems that there's a very concerted effort to cause a food crisis and a water crisis around the world so that these things can become commodified and privatized, so that we are at the mercies of our respective governments who are taking orders from these sick people. And this is the thing that
So
really
what's
concerns me the
interesting,
most, is
thank
the
you for
the
that.
globalist agenda is something that we really, really need to take a closer look at to understand. Hore, batho bana hantle hantle, ba ikemiseditse ho etsa eng? What are they actually, what's their intention? And that's what we have to be pushing back against. We need to really conscientize one another, because the global community of citizens is having the same conversation. Multiple lives, we're talking the same language. People in England are pushing back against digital ID. People in the Netherlands, people in Hungary is totally vehemently against this, all of these the globalist agendas, and they're pushing back because we're starting to feel like sheep being led to the slaughter now. They're talking about mass population reduction. How are they going to reduce the population? They're talking about climate change requires us to do this, that, and that, and these solutions are very nefarious that they're proposing to us. So it's a
The
big
World
concern
Health
when we're hearing
Organization,
politicians.
the
Yes,
World Health
yeah.
Organization has a lot to do with it. You know, the Alpha Pharma, the hospitals, the medicines, they intentionally make they all linked. All of it is linked. That is how they're going to do it, through our food and our medicines.
And this is why it seems that the conversation that concerned citizens are having globally is very much aligned, because you can speak to people from England who are concerned citizens. You can speak to people from Ghana who are concerned. Ghanaians are very, very similar to South Africans in terms of how they think. Same as
They
Kenyans.
love us
You know, they're
now.
countries that we know. Huh?
See, they love us now. After they
Yeah,
realize
now
what
now
those
they
Nigerians
now
were
they now
doing
they
in
get
their
it.
country.
Hey, they get it now. They're feeling the pressure. Hey, Jollofs will humble people. Countries are now coming to their senses and realizing that all of this Zeno was a narrative being pushed by criminals that wanted to perpetuate crime. So everybody's understanding that we're dealing with the beast here internationally, and people in Australia pushing back, New Zealand, etc., etc. And it's only a matter of time. Like Zandila said, this is a ticking time bomb where I believe we're literally living in WW3 right now, because the pushback is going to be heavy towards the this globalist agenda 2030, and all the checkpoints that they have to hit of centralizing everything and connecting everything to one system, our health, our finances, jobs. You won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that, etc., etc. So the pushback is going to be immense, and I believe that governments are going to take out their own people that resist this regime that's being pushed in mass. We're gonna see, yeah, I think we're gonna see something unlike anything we've ever seen before. Hence why we our us uniting as South Africans should have taken place yesterday already. Because the beast we're dealing with is bigger than just our political system here in South Africa. Those people are taking orders from somewhere. And there's no political party they're all the EFF, DA, ANC, they're all the same. They're just different arms and branches of the exact same thing, the exact same beast, pretending to be on opposing sides, like how America pretends that there's a left and a right, a blue and a red.
of their biggest main goal is that they must take over each and every place in the world where they want to create a system where people rent out every.
Zanzi, are you still there?
Literally. Hey,
Oh, okay. There you. Okay, we lost you
can
for
you
a
hear me,
second there.
guys?
Okay, you're back. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm saying the main target and goal is to own everything, and we rent out everything. Like literally, you rent out your living space. Everything is gonna be on a subscription as they think. That is their target. So that is their main goal ultimately, so that we keep on feeding their wealth. And it's so crazy. Like, how do they even come up with these things is beyond my comprehension. But for one, I don't think countries will take it lying down, because we've seen certain countries, mainly in Europe, kicking out Bill Gates' systems and his businesses, saying away with Bill Gates. So I think we must also be a part of that system that says we do not want all the systems that they're trying to bring. I'm definitely not for the digital ID, because we will be taking away our sovereignty as human beings.
You know, Hungary has a law that they passed last year called the Stop George Soros policy, which is basically George Soros funding these NGOs that undermine the independence and authority of governments by taking governments to court. So they made a law to stop these George Soros funded NGOs from being operational in their countries. And the fact that our country does not want to move away, like we said with the Geneva Convention, you can re enter with reservations. I think Princey articulated it very well, saying that it's not that we're saying we don't want to be part of the sort of global community, but we must enter with reservations and still be able to prioritize our citizens. And then Tulane Mavoso said that even if we re-enter with reservations, the tenets that guide our obligations within the Geneva Commission are still going to be upheld by the Constitution. They said either way, we're going to find ourselves in the same spot. But the problem is they're talking about the Constitution as if it's something that is set in stone that cannot be amended, fixed, tweaked. And this is where you start to realize the globalist agenda, that these people are actually powerless to implement any real change. They are beholden to what instructions they are being given, whether it's the DA, ANCF, they're all in bed together, they're all pushing the same agenda, and they're all playing politics and pretending to be on opposing sides to make us, just to give us something to occupy our minds so that we don't occupy our minds with what's more important, is seeing through all of this nonsense and figuring out ways that we can push back. One of the ways, I was on a live and I heard a really good idea from SA Standard. SA Standard, he was the one famous for the in the hospitals, I think for Macho March Group or Patriotic Alliance, telling foreigners they must leave so that our go-go's and our really sick people can be given preference in our hospitals. So he was on a live and he was speaking to, I think, a Ghanaian, and they had a plan to say we need to start doing programs, whether it's protest or whatever the case may be, that happen on the same day across various multiple countries about the same thing, because that will start making the globalists aware that we are aware what their plans are, and we're going to try our best to conscientize as many people around the globe to push back in their own countries, push back against your own government. Everybody must play their position. It's a team sport, but you must have your position. Your role is you're playing on the wing, or you're a striker, you're a defender. Stay there, specialize in your role, and we can fight this thing collaboratively without all of this mass immigration that's taking place, that's only causing cultural confusion. So at least now it seems like the conversation has moved away from all the xeno narratives and nonsense to how we can push back against these globalist puppets in our government to fight for our sovereignty in our respective countries, which I think is very important. Everybody must play their role. Everybody must play their positions. There's no time to run away. This is not the time, particularly men, African men this cannot be what we are known for. We cannot make it a lifestyle running to another man's country who has, taken the time to develop themselves, however way they did it, whether it's through imperialism, through war, through whatever it is. It cannot be the solution to run to those places. We must stay in our countries and figure things out and take pride in what we're building at home, because that'll be our legacy and the legacy that we leave for our children.
No, that is definitely the way forward. The conversation has changed now. The conversation has changed, and for me, what is giving me hope is when I see that South Africans are not afraid of names anymore, being called this and being called that. They know what they want. They're not negotiating anymore. They say, you know what, we own our history. We're gonna run with it. Um, I love that, and every corner now where you walk, you can see the people are ready to see this thing happening. Do you guys know when the municipal elections are happening, or the date has it been set yet?
No, I don't know the date yet.
Not yet.
Sometime around
Zansi,
November. They've pushed it way towards
November.
November. You know, normally our elections are around May.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they've pushed it towards November because they want to do their shenanigans. So yeah,
Eish.
we'll see, we'll see. Love you and leave
Yeah.
you guys. It was a very great one. We'll
Ah,
chat some
Galeboa.
other time.
Yeah.
Tashabu.
Hola, Frontman.
I'm,
Thank you.
I'm I'm
Thank you,
also
For
Rag.
sure.
gonna bounce. I have a meeting at quarter to
Thank you,
12.
thank you.
Yeah,
Ah,
that
no,
I had
Galeboa. Thank you, Bataholo. Yeah, no, we'll
uh,
meet again in
no,
the TikTok
definitely.
streets.
I'm following this channel and
Ah,
all that.
Lena
No,
Jolofe.
definitely. Great
Ah,
stuff,
thank you, Baranak. I
my good.
appreciate
Thank you
the,
so
the
much.
inputs, man. Thank you. Salah Handle. Shabrag. Yeah, guys, I mean, great all round discussions and perspectives from patriotic South Africans. And that's the most important thing for us to understand, that Bafetu, we're dealing with something that's much bigger than just South Africa, that's much bigger than just the African continent, that needs to be tackled by everybody assuming, playing their roles in their respective countries to push back against what their governments are trying to do. That's the only way we can frustrate the plans of these very evil people, these nefarious plans from these evil people. But hey, managana na linna ketla isia hona mona na galebo holo for everybody that's come in to give their inputs. We have some great inputs today. There's a live ing we very soon, maybe tomorrow. I wanna feel out how things go. But yeah, Bafir to Galebo, I appreciate all the inputs. Until next time, Salang Handle. Sharp.